What's up y'all, Immaculate here. In today's video, I'll be exploring the 12-bit mode on the Sonicware Lofi-12 XT. According to the manual, this setting drops the bitrate down from 16-bit to 12-bit, recreating the sound of old samplers. That description's a little bit vague though, and I want to explore how exactly this effect can impact the sound. So I'll be doing some comparisons before and after enabling the effect, and trying it on a couple different types of sounds. Alright, let's get to it. You can access the 12-bit mode controls from the SND page. From here, press the left auxiliary button to get to the voice controls, which is where you'll find the toggle for 12-bit mode. Turning the C knob right will turn this effect on, and left will turn it off. It's also important to note that by default, any sounds you record or load in will have this mode enabled. As for what 12-bit mode does, let's start by listening to some sounds on the Lofi-12 XT with 12-bit mode disabled. Then I'll turn it on. I have a few different drum one-shots in this sample on pad 1, so let's do some quick chops and make a sequence. Even without activating 12-bit mode, the 24 kHz sample rate has an impact on the sound. Nice and lo-fi. Now let's hear these sounds with 12-bit mode enabled. The most obvious difference to me is that the sample sounds louder with 12-bit mode enabled. Maybe it's applying a filter with a high cutoff and a little bit of resonance. Not exactly sure how it's changing the sound other than the fact that it's louder. But one way to explore it a little bit more is to use the resample feature on the Lofi-12 XT to really exaggerate the effect. We're going to record the sounds with 12-bit mode enabled, then in the new sample, we're going to keep the 12-bit mode enabled to double up on it. Resampling the loop once definitely increases the effect. In addition to the sample getting louder, it also sounds like a little bit of the high end is muted. And let's try resampling the loop one more time to get an even more exaggerated effect. After resampling twice, the effect sounds much more extreme. It almost has a distorted character to it, which bolsters the argument that it's increasing the levels. So 12-bit mode can give your drums a nice boost. Kicks and snares sound especially louder and punchier with this setting enabled. But what about how this affects melodic samples in your mix? Let's take a look at some examples. Our first example is a bass one-shot sample. I don't have any filters, effects, or other parameters adjusted, so let's listen to a clean version without 12-bit mode on. And here's how it sounds with 12-bit mode enabled. 12-bit mode on, it seems like the mid frequencies are getting louder, which gives the sound a bit of a distorted character. It's probably making the lower frequencies louder too, but since the mids are easier to hear, my perception is that the mids are getting more of a boost. Either way, I want the bass to take up less space in the mid-range, so I'm going to keep 12-bit mode off. Let's try another common melodic sample, a piano key. Just like with the bass, I have no effects or filters on this sample. Let's turn 12-bit mode off and hear the clean sample. And here's how it sounds with 12-bit mode enabled. Again, mostly it just sounds louder to me. Maybe we'll notice something else when playing a chord. It gives the chord a little bit more of a powerful feeling, but it might just be the increased levels doing that. For the final example, I'm going to use a full band sample and see how 12-bit mode works when there are a lot of different frequencies at play. I chopped the sample I found on a jazz record. This phrase has a saxophone, a guitar, and a bass. Just like with the bass, it brings the higher frequencies forward. You can hear this especially well on the chops where the sax is the loudest. It sounds brighter and makes the lo-fi aliasing easier to hear. And on the chops with the guitar, 12-bit mode amplifies the levels and makes the guitar sound easier to hear. And then one final pro tip on 12-bit mode. You can actually parameter lock this setting, which can be helpful if there are certain sounds in your track that you want 12-bit mode enabled on. For instance, if you have a track with your drum sounds, you can turn 12-bit mode on for your steps with the kick and the snare, while keeping your hi-hats lower in the mix by having 12-bit mode off on those steps. So for this example, we'll disable 12-bit mode on this track, then I'll hold down the numbered step button for the step I want it active on, and while still holding the button down, I'll turn the C knob to enable the 12-bit mode effect. I know that wasn't a very technical comparison, but when it comes to making music on hardware devices like this, I think it's more about finding what sounds better to you, as opposed to being able to see and fine-tune infinite parameters like in a DAW. And for 12-bit mode specifically, my perception is that it increases the levels of whatever you add it to. It seemed like it had the most pronounced effect on the bass sample and the drum sounds, and as for the other melodic samples like the piano or the full band sample, it didn't sound too much different, just a little bit louder. But I'm curious to know what you like to use 12-bit mode for. If there's anything you've learned about it or things you like to do with it, drop it in the comments so everyone else can try that out too. Well, that does it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.